Welcome back, fourth and long fans. It's your footy correspondent, Coach Donnie Hess here, and it has returned. Ladies and gentlemen, it is back. AFLW takes a tiny intermission, and we are back. Season 7. We can't say AFL season 22 because this is number 2. So we will go with season 7 is about to get started. We are mere hours away from the first bounce of Collingwood and Carlton. So, we got to do it. We got to do a preview. And I am joined again by another great co-host again, Miss Allie Collette. Allie, thank you again for joining me to season preview season 7.
Thank you for having me.
All righty. I got to ask, but before we even get into any of the main parts, how excited are you? You were mere hours. You were actually on the day of the first game. How does it feel as an AFL Nuffy, as somebody that's super excited for AFLW? What is it like, and how excited are you?
Very. I don't think it's quite hit me yet that it's actually game day. It's probably just because I've been so busy this week. But yeah, after the state league's finished, it's just, come on, hurry up AFLW, hurry up AFLW. So I've kind of been impatient, but it also, it hasn't quite hit me yet. But I think once I get to Princes Park tonight, I'll sit there and go, okay, it's back. Christmas is back. Life is good.
Absolutely fantastic. And the best part is that you only have to get through your day. I have to sleep through the night and then get up early in the morning potentially to watch this one. So an absolute cracker between Collingwood and Carlton. But we've got to talk about it before we get into the nuts and bolts of this season. We have 4 new teams. All 18 clubs now have a representative in the AFLW. So let's really quickly go through it. We've been through expansion. We've been through the draft. Let's talk about it. 4 new teams: Port Adelaide, Hawthorn, Essendon, Sydney. Let's start off with it. Just looking at it from the list builds that you have seen, what of these 4 expansion teams do you think could do the most in season 7?
For me, it's either Port or Essendon. I don't. I've now seen 3 of the 4 of them play and heard a lot about how team number 4 went. And I think Port have a particularly dangerous forward line and a concentrated experience in the defense, but it's not as weak as a side like Essendon, who also have a very dangerous forward line, but their back line is so inexperienced. So I'm intrigued to see how they both go. I think they're going to try and push some of the teams for a final spot, but at the same time, I wonder the fact that they are the last of the expansion sides and the others have got a bit of a head start on them might mean they just miss out this year.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. I look at it like this: is that Port Adelaide, I think they're the sneaky of the expansions. I think Essendon hit the home runs. They got the Bonnie Two Goods.
Yeah.
They got the Matty Persparkses. They got the Georgia G's. They got the Jess Wishners. They got the marquee names, the people that you sit on the marquee to go and watch. Port Adelaide, yes, they got Jem Howden. Yes, they got Aaron Phillips, but they were sneaky good. They got some really good additions with a lot of experience that I think they're going to be they're of the 4 expansion teams. I agree with, also from rookie me with Peter Williams, that I think Port is the team that of any of the 4 expansion teams is going to be sniffing around finals. I think it's going to be Port. I agree with you. I think Essendon's firepower, I think, is going to be able to kind of help the little bit of lack of depth and put them there. Then the question would be, is Hawthorn Sydney? How do we kind of see that? I remember I watched the Sydney Collingwood game, and for the first half, it was a very competitive, tough game. And in the second half, Sydney kind of drifted away. But the one thing that I noticed was I think Scott Gowans kind of rotated his entire squad. Montana Ham did not play as much in the second half. And some of the younger players played in that second half when Collingwood started to kind of dominate. So I'm interested to see in a full entire game, is Sydney a little bit stronger than maybe the result of that game against Collingwood was? So I'm very fascinated by it. But I agree with you. Port Adelaide, I think, is 1, Essendon 2. Hawthorne, Sydney are really even. I really want to kind of see
Mm.
how they go. Again, Hawthorne's got a lot of experience, and they really did lean on their VFLW side. So how do some of their girls come up? And it's the same thing with Sydney. A lot of VFLW talent and some New South Wales talent that's played well, but we don't know how they'll go in AFLW experience. And the experienced players for Sydney are relatively few and far between. After Maddie Collier, um, Elise Newman, Brooke Lachlan, Ali Morfitt, there really isn't a lot of depth. So we'll at least experience depth, shall we say. There's depth there. I think there's talent, but that'll be the main question there. So we've covered the expansion teams and how excited I am. And everybody knows I'm a huge Swans fan. Cannot wait. North Sydney Oval, Sydney Swans, St. Kilda Saints. Super excited for this game. The game starts 2:10 my time, AM. I'm going to be up, ladies and gentlemen. I will be up. I will be tweeting. I cannot wait. Super, super excited for that. So we cover the expansions. Let's go to the established clubs and let's talk some expectations right here, right now. I'm going to bracket some of these teams a little bit and how I kind of see them, and I want to know what you think. Let's start off towards the bottom. Let's start off towards the bottoms. The teams that last year did not play well. They were towards the bottom of the ladder. St. Kilda, the West Coast Eagles, Geelong Cats. Those three teams right there. What are your expectations for these three teams? Do we see improvement this year, or do we see these teams kind of wavering around the bottom expansion, say the Sydneys, the Hawthorns, and maybe the Essendons?
And they're an interesting trio. I think I'm a bit nervous for how West Coast will go. Their list turnover is arguably the most dramatic of everyone's this season. 11 new faces. So yeah, they've got quite a bit of talent in, mind you, like your Jade Brittons and your Ella Roberts. They've definitely got the talent, but whether the synergy and the fact that they've had so much list turnover, it worries me. St Kilda are an interesting one because they don't seem to have fixed the scoring issues that plagued them last season. But to be fair, in the practice match, they didn't have Caitlin Greiser. So I think realistically, they should win their first two games this season. They have to if they want to. They really are those must-win kind of games. But then after that, I'm just not sure. Not sure about St Kilda. And Geelong are a weird one because of those three, I expect them to be the one that has the most improvement. They seem to have traded experience for experience, sending out your Phoebe McWilliams, your Geordie Ivies, and your Liv Barbers for people like Jackie Harry and Shell Scott and Michaela Bowen. But yeah, I'm not quite sure what to make of Geelong yet because they seem to have more ready-made, really good forward options. But yeah, I remember sitting last season going, even though they didn't get the wins, it looked really good the first half of the year. And then they drifted away. I'm like, where did your good early season form go, Geelong? So yeah, I think all three, I feel like we're going to get a better picture of a couple of rounds in, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to kind of see how this goes because that's a group I'm fascinated to see if there's any issues when it comes to it with maybe being down there with some of these expansion teams that I think a lot of people are kind of assuming expansion there's going to be headaches, there's going to be some growing pains. So are they going to be right for the chance to win, or because of the St. Kilda's playing Sydney's and the West Coast playing Port Adelaide's, do we see an expansion team get a win right off the bat against a team that's kind of struggled over the last couple of seasons? So this next bracket's going to be a little bit bigger. I'm going to throw this in. These are teams I'm really not sure what to think about right now. Their seasons are really weird for me. GWS, Carlton, the Western Bulldogs, and the Gold Coast Suns. because if you really look at it, Carlton, GWS, and the Gold Coast Suns really did lose several experienced players from each of their rosters. I mean, Carlton absolutely got gutted, which unfortunately I hate saying that, but they did. And some of their best talents found themselves into other places. The Western Bulldogs saw several players find new homes, and Gold Coast unfortunately lost a lot of what I consider linchpins for last year's really good season. So looking at this little quartet here, GWS, Carleton, Western Bulldogs, Gold Coast, what are your thoughts on these? Are any of these teams potentially looking at finals this year? And do we see an improvement from last year? Do we see some struggles because of those big losses?
That is a very interesting quartet there. I think Bulldogs and GWS definitely should be pushing for that final, that seventh, eighth, because I think we've got a clear top six. The question is who is seventh, eighth? I think that those four, maybe not Carlton, maybe not Gold Coast, plus your Essendons and your Ports are going to be that six battling for that last two spots in the finals. I was really impressed by Gold Coast last season, but they did lose a lot of experience. Your Britt Perrys, your Hannah Duns, your Jackie Austins, your Kate Sermons,
Perko.
Perko. Yes,
That's
thank you.
that's the one honestly that I think was the biggest loss, because she really helped Bohanna really thrive, because she took the best defender. Bohanna was able to get free, and I really think, because you could tell from the previous season when Gold Coast could barely win a game, Perko comes back last year and look at the improvement. Yes, she get Charlie Rowbottom. Yes, let's not roll her out at all, but Charlie Rowbottom did not totally flip that team, because you can give great service to the forwards, but if you don't have a solid full forward like Perko, you don't have a lot to go to. And she was very consistent for most of the season. Yes, she had her wayward moments, but her and Terrible Hannon were a two-headed monster many teams had trouble with. And I think that was one of the reasons why they won. So her finding her way back to Beck Goddard, Victoria with Hawthorn, I think that's a massive loss for Gold Coast. I worry does this send Gold Coast back into the doldrums of the bottom part of the ladder?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because that was such a partnership last season, and yeah, it has been a long time coming. I feel, because they both came from the same local club as well, and have had that partnership for a long time. So you bring Bahana in, and boom, it's the Eastern Devils dominant forward partnership all over again. But yeah, I was lucky enough to chat to Tara at the captain's day. Mind you, the fact that she's captain, it makes me so happy. But I'm on a tangent. Yeah, and yeah, there are a few different options she named. People like your Giselle Davies, your Jackie Dupays. There are a couple of different options, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be very easy to try and replace Perko at all.
100% agree. So I'm really interested in that. The Western Bulldogs, I'm not as much worried about them. Is Daisy Bateman going to step in and take over Bonnie Two Good spot? No, she's not. I mean, I love Daisy Bateman. I think she's an incredible player. I think she's going to have success in the Bulldogs forward line. But all due respect to her, she is not Bonnie Too Good. Bonnie Too Good, and the skill set's a little bit different. But I think it brings a little. I think it's going to even out things. Nell Doris Malton, I cannot get her name out. Why? Nell Morris Dalton, I think played really, really well in the absence of Isabel Huntington last year with Bonnie Too Good. So maybe those two work together really well, and we maybe see some scoring for the Doggies to be able to bring them into potential. I mean, when you have Ellie Blackburn in the middle, you've instantly got to step up over a lot of teams. So I think the Doggies of this group is the team I'm the most confident in. But GWS is the one, they're the smoky in this group. I don't know really what I'm getting, because what they did lose, they lost both of their rucks. Both of their rucks found themselves, one at Sydney and one came down, I think it's to Geelong. But
Gilda.
Fleur Davis That's a heck of a pickup. One of the best rucks in the
Yes.
entire country. The issue will be is how much will she play? Because as we've kind of as many people have said, a lot of these girls are still finishing their year 12s and they've got VCEs and all of that. So how much do some of these draft girls play will be the $9 million question for me on GWS. So I think if they can get at least a stable enough ruck. I mean, when you've got the midfield that they do, and when you have the goal machine up forwards that you have, and some of the talent that I think GWS potentially could be fighting for finals with the increase to 8. There's two more spots open. I mean, I think the top 6, as you kind of said earlier, I think the top 6 is pretty. We know 6 of the teams probably gonna make finals. It's those final 2 spots that we're kind of like, who's going to be there? So, which is actually going to be a perfect transition. I think one of those spots is going to be filled by this next team. I can't really stick them in the previous group because I think they're a little bit more set, but I don't want to stick them in my next group because I'm not 100% sure. And that's Richmond. I have Richmond in a purgatory a little bit here
Mm.
because they didn't lose much. They gained Grace Egan, which I think only makes that midfield much deeper than it already was. It was already good. Ellie McKenzie and Mon Conti, absolutely fantastic players. If Ellie McKenzie can stay healthy and stay on the park, Richmond's midfield is absolutely lethal. You add Grace Egan, a very solid midfielder to that depth. This is a really good team. Brennan up front can kick goals. The biggest $1 million question I have for Richmond is, can they make up for the still not having Harriet Cordner due to her ACL, which I think was one of the things that really kind of submarined their season when she went down with her ACL. Their defensive numbers went down the tube, unfortunately, after that. So they started to play better towards the end of the season. So this is a team I see potentially getting into the 8. What are your thoughts on Richmond?
Yeah, they're an intriguing one because yeah, they're definitely battling for one of those last spots, but yeah, Harriet Cordner is just such a huge loss. So how do they fill that gap? And they started season 6. I was about to say 2022. Got to get that out of my system. They
It's going to take
started.
a bit. It's going to take a bit.
I've been I've been saying season 7 for months, and now I do that anyway. They started season 6 really well because
Mm-hmm.
they beat St Kilda. Hindsight, probably, yeah, people shouldn't have been talking them up after that one. But then they also had Melbourne on the ropes early in round 2. So
Mm-hmm.
I think then they go, okay, are Richmond going to cause a few surprises this season? But yeah, their ball movement is just so impressive because you've got your Contis, your Mackenzies, both Hoskins. Someone I'm really intrigued to see how they go this year is Megan Kiley because
Mm-hmm.
she seemed to really step up in that practice match against Hawthorn. So is she going to be the Tessa Lavey of this season and have a breakout year through that midfield?
Mm-hmm.
That yeah intrigues me. So yeah, I guess overall for Richmond is, can they make that next step up to match it with yeah, that top 6, and then the other sides we mentioned just before, and get that final spot. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm not quite sure yet.
yeah, like I said, they're a purgatory team. I'm not really, like I said, I don't really want to stick them with the Western Bulldogs, the Gold Coast, because they didn't really lose a ton. I honestly I think they got a little bit stronger adding Grace Egan, but I'm not really sure I want to put them in my next group. And my next group is what you many people would say is the bottom 3 of the top 6. That's North, Collingwood, Fremantle, and not in that order, and not definitely not in that order for sure. So this is the bottom 3 that made the finals last year. I think these were the teams that they filled the numbers. I think everybody discussed Melbourne, Adelaide, Brisbane were the top 3. 2 of those 3 teams were going to play in the grand final. Fremantle, Collingwood, and North were just there to make the finals whole. So I ask it, do we see this again this year? Again this season? Fremantle, Collingwood, North, they're good. They're going to make I highly doubt these 3 teams won't make finals unless travesty happens. And you never know. Again, AFLW can throw curveballs. Nobody expected Collingwood to lose both Britt Benici and Bree Davy in the span of 6 games. So nobody expected that. But Collingwood still relatively played well, inconsistent, but well. So I look at it as do we have three teams that are kind of filling up finals for Melbourne, Adelaide, and Brisbane to fight for a flag? Or could we see a smoky of one of these three teams be in contention to kind of disrupt the apple cart a little bit?
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because Collingwood injury hit. If the I don't want to call it a throwaway season, but if they don't quite match it or improve from last season,
Mhm.
oh, we've lost. We don't have Bree. We don't have Brett. Got we've got a strong midfield. Let's just build for next season. North have lost a lot of experience, a lot of talent in the off season. So I worry about how they'll go. So if there's a smoky of the three, I've got to pick Freo because yes, they're missing both Antonios. Yes, they don't have Hatton anymore. But if you look at their fixture, they've got Brisbane this weekend. That's going to be a bit of a tough one. But then they've got Geelong at home,
Mhm.
Bulldogs at in Melbourne, Carlton at home, West Coast technically at home because it's the same state, but it's up to stadium. Melbourne at home, and then Adelaide away, Collingwood at home, and then they finished the season with Sydney Hawthorn.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of people are going to underestimate Freo because of those big losses, but that draw is bloody good.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think if there's going to be a smoky out of any of those three, I definitely have to tip Freo.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that concerns me a little bit is three of your 10 games are against the top three teams, and you're probably going to be underdogs in all three. The good thing is, though, you get Melbourne at home, and Fremantle at home is always they're always tough. Like it is hard
Yeah.
to go west and win, especially against Fremantle because their style. The only thing that I think may even it out a little bit is that previous years they kind of went off the fact that it was warmer there than it is in Melbourne. So it's not going to
Hmm.
be as warm since we're a little bit more and we're a little bit closer into winter. It's a little bit of a different season. So I'm fascinated to see how does Fremantle's game change a little bit because they don't have that running machine mentality using a little bit of the weather to kind of help them out. I mean, they were so used to running in that climate that I think when Victorian teams came there, it gassed them and gassed them quickly. So we'll have to see do they adjust to that. But I'm 100% with you. When you've got a turbo on your roster, you've got a game changer right there for you. And Haley Miller is another one that if she wants to can absolutely destroy a game when she wants to. The Antonio losses I think are big. I'm fascinated to see. And the loss of Steph Kane is another one. I'm
Yeah.
interested to see how they make up for her relocation over here over oh crap I can't remember where she
Essendon.
Essendon. I thought it was Victoria, but my brain went so I was like it's those moments you get the camera in front of you and your brain craps out. I don't know why. So but yeah, I go ahead.
Just wanted to make a quick point. You were talking about it being hotter, generally hotter in Perth than in Melbourne. I just want to just got the weather up for Perth for the next few days. 23, 21, 18, 17, 19. I would love that kind of weather in Melbourne right now. I don't think we're going to get above 15. So I think
True,
they've still got that advantage.
but if you think about it though, is that last season they were playing in the summertime, so it was probably 25, 27, 28,
Yeah.
closer to 30. So it's a little bit warmer. So it's fantastic footy weather. Like that sounds like absolutely serene footy weather. But I mean, it's going to be one of those where it's not exactly the same. It is cooler. It's not as warm. So we'll definitely have to see how that goes and we go from there. Well, let's talk about it. And this involves your favorite team, Ali. So I'll let you go for it. Melbourne, Adelaide, Brisbane. These are the three teams. I think everybody's saying it. These are the three teams that are going to be fighting for the flag. Is there any argument? And do we have one team? Take your Melbourne hat off for just a second. Is there one team that you think right now is going to be the flag contender as we speak going into season one?
Yes, and it's not just me that says it. I just want to put that out there
That's
from the
fine. I've heard it. I'm pretty sure what you're going to say, and I think I completely agree. I want to hear your points here.
Yeah. So yes, my me and a lot of other people have tipped the D's for the flag. They were my tip last year, and it obviously didn't quite happen.
You
But
were close. You were super close.
yeah, don't get me started.
I know.
Uh, but yeah, I think for me, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide. I think a lot of people are going to underestimate Adelaide because they lost, particularly Phillips and Foley.
Mm-hmm.
People underestimate the loss of Ange Foley. But if they can cover those losses, I think that there's going to be a contender anyway. But yeah, they're going to be more of a contender if they can cover those two. Brisbane, they won the flag last calendar year. I still feel like they fly under the radar a bit. Yeah, they haven't had too many losses in the off season, and they've just added to their depth, so they're still going to be round the mark. But yeah, I think this is Melbourne's year. They are, they are going to still be hurting from that grand final day last year. Yes, they lost a number of players to trade and expansion. Yes, they don't have Gab Colvin anymore. Don't get me started. That ruined my day the day that was announced that
Mm-hmm.
she's done her ACL. But the players they brought in, Charlotte Wilson, ready-made defender. Geordie Ivy looks like she's moving into the forward line, which is an interesting move as someone who was a midfielder. And then they've it was a very interesting move that they went from to draft from the VFLW team, which I personally really liked because they re-picked up Maeve Chaplin, who had a stellar state league season and was unlucky to get delisted. Picked up the Casey skipper Samantha Johnson, who also had a stellar state league season. Georgia Gall's a bit of an unknown quantity so far at this stage. Unfortunately, he's injured, so won't be playing. And then Sabrina Duffy, pickup of the off season, if you do say so myself. And then Blotty Mackin. She's the G's new Irish girl, and then she came in, hadn't even been in the country a week, played that practice match, only got half a game unfortunately, but has already shown she's going to be a running machine, and looks like a natural already. Like that goal she kicked was probably about 40 meters out, which was seriously impressive. So personally, I'm really hoping she's in the round one team. I don't know if she will be because that side is just so strong. But yeah, I'm fingers crossed. And then the non-additions, I don't quite know what the phrase is I'm looking for here, but the players that are still there, you've still got your Lauren Pierces, your Karen Paxmans, your Taylor Harrises. That team is just so strong. So yeah.
And everybody's the talk of everybody here is the story of, can they get Daisy Pierce a flag? Like, and I think that's, I don't want it to be a storyline, but you have to say it. It's going to be a storyline most of the season because, I mean, Daisy, as much as we want her to continue to play, as much as we want her to stay there, I mean, she's closer to the end than the beginning, and this, it is no disrespect to her, and she's still playing really good football. So I is this one of those where will she win the flag and go out a champion, or will she continue on? Because I'm 100% with you.
Yeah.
It is hard for me not to see Melbourne as the flag favorite. I agree with you. I think way too many people are going, Aaron Phillips is gone, Adelaide's going to take 2 steps. Adelaide is still super strong. Aaron Phillips could go out of that roster, and Adelaide is still very, very, very good. They're very difficult. Eb Marinoff and Hatchard, those two right there are an absolute nightmare to try to guard. Most teams are not able to shut them down at all. Woodward up front is absolutely fantastic. Their defense is miserly at times. So Adelaide is going to be in with a sniff. Brisbane is scary because they're still really good. They didn't lose anything. In fact, it almost made me laugh that Starcevich before expansion was complaining that he was going to lose, and he didn't lose anybody. None.
Mm.
Nothing. And it was almost kind of funny because they asked Starcevich, they go, "Do you regret your comments a little bit because you didn't your roster didn't get touched?" Emily Bates was heavily courted, but she stayed in Queensland. She stayed as a Lion. So and he kind of did. He kind of backtracked a tiny bit. He still kind of he stood his ground a little, but he waned a little bit when it came to it. That he was like, okay, it's not just a foregone conclusion that half my roster is going to be gone and I got to build it from scratch, which is scary because it had happened two previous times and they're still such a good squad. So it's a three-headed monster. I think one of these three teams is going to win the flag. If I had to rank them, I'd go Melbourne, I'd go Brisbane, I'd go Adelaide. I think they did lose. I think Adelaide did lose a little bit of depth. Aaron Phillips is a game changer. Yes, you got Hatchard. Yes, you've got Marinoff. But I think Melbourne's roster is getting stronger. Brisbane's roster is getting stronger. Adelaide is kind of, I don't know how they can get stronger. Yes, the SA girls are absolutely fantastic. But when you are at the top of the ladder, you don't get many draft picks. So though SA was strong, they didn't get many picks in. So and you can only survive on experienced talent for so long. So we'll really have to see. So I'm thoroughly intrigued. I think these three are going to be fun to watch because they're going to be the measuring sticks, and I'm fascinated to see. So let's go through it. I mean, we went through season 6 again, fantastic season, only 14 teams, 4 new teams. But what's one team that you were really looking at this year you think are almost are your team that you think are going to be an improved side this year, a team that didn't make finals that is going to make finals this year?
Hmm. That's that's a tricky question, actually. Um, for me at this stage, it's either the Bulldogs or the Giants. I think
Mhm.
of that of that pack battling for the final two spots, I think they're the strongest of the two. And the thing with the Bulldogs is we can't forget that COVID was horrible to the Bulldogs. So if they hadn't had that horrible outbreak, could
They're
things
in
have
the
been
finals.
different?
They're in the finals. I think they knock out Collingwood, and they were in the finals. If you take away that COVID thing and they don't have the disaster game against GWS where they came back with such short notice after so many girls were sick with COVID, I think the Western Bulldogs win that game and I think they make finals. So I 100% agree with you. The doggies season last year really went into the toilet early because of COVID, and they just could never dig themselves out of the hole that they got in. That was really not their fault. It was an evil circumstance that just happened to happen at that time.
Yeah, they definitely got better as the season progressed. So yeah, hindsight's a funny thing, but yeah, we can't dwell on the past. We have to keep looking at the future.
I 100%. For me, I'm going to peg Richmond. I think it's the reason why I put them in the purgatory because I think they're that seventh team that I look at being in the finals. The eighth team, it's a coin toss right now between several teams. I think Port Adelaide and Essendon are going to be in with a shout. GWS, Western Bulldogs, Gold Coast. I think those 5 teams I think are going to be fighting for that final spot. But for me, it's Richmond because I think they didn't lose a ton. What they did lose in depth, they've gotten back in like I said, Grace Egan, I think was an incredible addition. I think they've been really good. They've had several months to figure out how they're going to replace Harriet Cordner for next year, and they did start to kind of get better defensively in the end of the year. So, if this is a team like the Western Bulldogs, I think the sooner the season actually I think helps them because they can kind of go off the momentum of the end of last year, playing pretty good footy, not making finals, but still playing really good footy towards the end of the year. So I think Richmond is my team that I think is going to improve this year, and I think has a really good shot of making finals. Uh, I don't like I don't like going bad, but let's really quickly. What's a team that's going to regress? A team that this year from last year is going to be a little bit further down the ladder.
Sorry, Carlton fans, because I know plenty of you, but I have to say the Blues.
Well, I'm with you. Unfortunately, the way they lost talent, unfortunately, and it was such good talent. And I mean, yes, you've got Darcy Vesio still there. Yes, you've got Mimi Hill, who I think Mimi Hill could have another really good season this year, being kind of the number one fiddle in that midfield. But I unfortunately see them dipping down. I think they're going to be towards the bottom of the 14 teams that have been established. So we've went through the expansion. We went through the regulars. Let's do it. I know it's the start of the season. We have 10 rounds. There's injuries. There's all sorts of things that could happen, but let's do it right now. If you had to, who are the eight teams that are gonna be battling for the flag at the end of the year?
Oh gosh. Okay, so Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, Freo, Collingwood, North.
There's your six.
Okay, yeah, yeah. And then oh shoot, those last two spots.
Like I said, it's all just
I'm gonna
depends
give
on
it.
how you see
Yeah, I'm gonna
it.
give it to the Dogs and the Giants. I
Dogs and
wouldn't be
Giants.
surprised if Richmond gets in there.
All righty, Dogs and the Giants. So there's her eight. I'm gonna go the same top six. Like I said, it was those. It's hard to argue. North's my only worry team of that top six of maybe kind of dropping a little bit further. I have Richmond at 7, and I'm crazy. I think it's between the Western Bulldogs and Port. I think with Port's the build, um, Essendon has all that talent, but I'm worried about the depth behind the superstars. If any of them have any kind of injury issues at all, I think it's going to regress it. Yes, Essendon had that amazing VFLW season this year, but AFLW is a step up. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit different style game. So I'm going to go Richmond. I'm going to go for the fairy tale. I think Port gets in. I think if Aaron Phillips can stay healthy, if Gemma Houghton can kick accurately, which that's another question in itself. If those two can be dangerous and they can at least give them supply, Port is going to be very, very, very difficult to stop at times, especially with the experienced talent that they brought in. I'm like I said, I'm going to be weird. I'm going to go crazy. Let's throw an expansion. Let's throw an expansion team to kind of throw a spanner in the works. I think Port Adelaide. So Richmond and Port Adelaide are the last two teams into the finals. I know, I pretty much know. I think I know who the answer is on this one, but I'm going to ask, if you had to tip a flag right now, who's your flag? Who do you think is going to be raising the cup at the end of AFLW season 7? Oh, I saw that one coming
Says
from
it
a
all,
mile
right?
away. Oh, loyalties do are strong on this podcast. The demons. I'm with you. I'm actually quite with you. I really like the way the D's built. I think it's a D's Brisbane final. I think Adelaide
Me
goes
too.
strong. I think Brisbane and Melbourne are the two teams I think that have enough talent to be with them. If we get to the only thing is one semifinal is going to be fantastic, and one semifinal is going to be the easiest one to probably tip, just how he goes, just a lot like it was last year. So I have Melbourne in this, but I think Brisbane's going to be there. Adelaide, I think, will regress just the tiniest bit. I still think they'll be very, very competitive, but I think they're going to step back just the tiniest bit. I normally I don't like the individual awards. I like the team awards, but I'll ask this: who's kind of who kind of the people that you're putting in for who you think are going to win the best and fairest for this season?
This is an interesting one because I had to tip this for work too. So um I was tossing up several names, but ultimately I went with Em Bates again because she flew on again. Brisbane and flying under the radar. She flew under the radar quite a bit for me last season, and I feel like there's a good chance she could do it again because she's she's part of that strong Brisbane midfield. She's just is such a good ball winner and gives such good delivery to Brisbane's forwards. And yeah, I don't think she's got too many teammates that can pinch votes off her as well, which always helps. So yeah, I think Yeah, Impact could go back to back here.
Awesome, awesome. Mine's gonna be a little bit of a curveball. I've heard this name thrown out very rarely, but I like it, and I had to I wanted to go through. I wanted to double check the player that I think is going to win is because I look at it. They only play of the top three teams. They only play two of the three. They do not play Melbourne, and that's the Richmond Tigers and Mon Conti. The way she's
Mm.
always around the footy, she always gets a lot of disposals, and she's damaging because she can always find a way to get out of it. She's really focused on football this year. They only play Adelaide and Brisbane, so 8 games, and their 8 games are some winnable games: Geelong, Hawthorn, Essendon, Gold Coast, West Coast, Carlton, GWS, and North. She's got a good chance of pulling 3 votes in a lot of those games, which in a shortened season, in a 10-win season, you can get 6 3-vote games. You're pretty good. You're going to be at the
Mm.
top of the votes here. So I think Mon Conti could be a very strong chance if she stays healthy and she can play well. I think Mon Conti's got a chance to win the best and fair. So I'm gonna tip her. Emily Bates, the Ann Hatchards, Ebony Marinoffs. I don't like choosing one of those two because I think they pit. Yes, they got a lot of votes last year, but I think they pip votes off each other. If one wasn't there and the other, I think you probably see most of the 3 votes every time they win go to one or the other. But because they're both on the same team, I think they're going to eventually start taking votes away from each other. So, I Mon Conti is my number one. I think Emily Bates is number two. But it's hard not to say Ann Hatchard and Ebony Marinoff. They're going to probably pull well. Adelaide's going to win a lot of games, most likely. They're going to be there. So those are my top four. But I like Mon Conti.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, and I like your thinking.
So, and like I said, I wanted to look at her schedule a little bit as you were talking about Emily Bates. I pulled up, like I said, I pulled up Richmond's schedule, and I'm like, I can get 3 votes there, get 3 votes there, probably get a vote there. I'm like, well, I said in most of those games, I said she's got a good shot of winning 3 votes. So I'm very excited, and I hope she does because she's an absolutely electric player. She's so much fun to watch. I cannot wait. So we've got to it. We've previewed it. We've talked about it. Game one starts in a few hours. We got a tip. We got to know who do you like in this. So let's go really quickly through each of these. It'll be fascinating to see how it goes. First game, the one coming up in mere hours from recording, Carlton, Collingwood, Icon Park. Who do you like?
I think it should be a cracker of a game. But I think Collingwood are just too strong, so I think they'll prevail.
I'm one of those. I completely agree with you. I have Collingwood. I have a little bit of a love. I had the absolute pleasure of talking with Steph Kiochi. She was absolutely fantastic to talk to, and I did say that when they're not playing the Swans, I will barrack for her a little bit. So I will tip the Pies in this one over Carlton. I agree, Chess a little too strong. It may bring up bad memories, but we're gonna do it. Unfortunately, we have to do it. Adelaide, Melbourne, grand final rematch. Do you think the D's go over to South Australia and pip the reigning premiers, or does Adelaide start off season 7 with another win?
Oh, I'd rather not remember that grand final day. It's she who cried 6 times between the final siren and her flight home. I think although it's not at Norwood, they've moved it to Glenelg. They are very similar ground shapes. I've been expertly told. Thank you, Peter Williams. But I still think the D's will win because no Phillips, who has been an absolute thorn in Melbourne's side for so many years now. And the D's girls are going to go across. They're still going to be burning from that hurt of losing, going so close last year. And the team is so strong. So I think all those factors combined mean that the D's will win. And before anyone says it, that's not my bias talking, that's my professional head talking.
I wasn't going to. You brought out some great points. In fact, when I originally started doing my tips, I tipped Adelaide, but I like your thinking. I think usually when they do the replay, the team that doesn't come out victorious usually gets the win the next season. So I'm gonna tip Melbourne, though. Again, over in South Australia, Adelaide is always tough at home, but again, they're not at Norwood, they're at Glenelg. Let's see, is there going to be an adjustment period? So I like Melbourne in this one, so I'm gonna tip Melbourne. We go to Bloodstone Arena down in Tassie, North Melbourne versus the Gold Coast Suns. I like the Roos here. I think the Gold Coast losses, I think, will really hurt. I think North, though, damaged themselves. I think when you've got Emma Carney, you've got some of the experienced players. Ash Riddell had an amazing season. I think she's in line for another good one this year. I like the Roos. I just think their experience will hold them up in game one.
Yeah, I'm also tipping the Roos because although they had both sides had huge losses. North is still the strongest side on paper, and although they've never played at Blundstone before, it's still Tassie. So I think that's gonna work in their favor as well.
It'll be interesting because I don't think North has ever lost in Tasmania. I know they haven't played a Blundstone, but I don't think they've lost to Tassie. I think they've played 5 matches in Tassie and haven't lost or something to that. I heard that statistic somewhere. Whether it's right or not, we'll probably get told in the comment section. We'll have to see. So, and we jump to the next one on Saturday, and here we go. The first games of all 4 expansions right in a row. Port Adelaide play West Coast, Mineral Resources Park. Does the West Coast start the new season with a new team off 1-0, or does Port Adelaide get their first inaugural win in its first game?
If I was in the Port camp and ranking who I'd want as my first opponent, if I could
West
get the
Coast would
expansion
be
side,
it.
I would have loved to have had West Coast. I think I honestly think Port are going to do it here because West Coast is so young, so many new faces. Yes, you've got your Emma Swansons and your Dana Hookers who are brilliant, but no Evie Gooch and so many new faces. And Port seriously impressed me in their practice match, so I think Port are going to get the chocolates here.
I'm with you. The turnover at West Coast concerns me a little bit. I think it's going to take a little bit of time. The short training with all of the moves, I think is going to weaken West Coast a little bit. I think they'll get stronger as the season goes on, but I have Port in this one. Let's go to North Sydney Oval. Sydney Swans versus St. Kilda Saints. Like you, I will take my Swans hat off. I will put on my neutral hat. But even putting on my neutral hat, I have some great points and why I think the Swans will win this, because St. Kilda, unfortunately, the loss of Tilly Lucas Rod, I think, is really going to sting this team. Yes, you get Georgia Patrikios back. Yes, you get Tanya Smith, but they haven't played footy in over a year. Will they be rusty? And Sydney, honestly, of the chatter that I've heard, and this is a little bit of red hat Swans, Donnie here, I will not be shocked if this is a sellout at North Sydney Oval. There is a ton of chatter that everybody's getting their tickets. Everybody's going. Everybody wants to support the girls. I think Sydney gets this one. I think Sydney gets this one early in the season in front of a packed North Sydney Oval. I cannot wait. This is so exciting for me. Put my red hat on. Let's go Bloods. I hope they get their first inaugural win. But St. Kilda, this will be a tough one. This will be a scrappy match. I cannot wait to see this. So what do you think?
This fascinates me because it could go either way. It's one of those ones where St. Kilda have to win. It's just one of those wins where one of those games, sorry, but they just can't drop it. They're probably the strongest side on paper. If Swan's inexperience is going to hurt them, for one thing, and if Monham gets tagged out of the game, they're in a little bit of strife. I'm going to tip St Kilda, but if the Swans get over the top, it's not the biggest surprise in the world.
All right, we'll jump to it. The game has been moved, and thankfully it has. It sounds like it is going to be incredibly well attended. Essendon, Hawthorn, Marvel Stadium. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, another fascinating one. I think after having now seen both of them, I think Essendon, despite their inexperienced defense, Hawthorn's ability to get it inside their 50 and score isn't going to worry the Bombers. So I think Essendon are too strong on paper and should be too strong on field.
Yeah, I remember watching the practice, seeing the practice match results, and I think it's kind of flipped me a little bit when I originally looked at it. So I agree with you. I think the Bombers win this one, but I think this is an absolute cracker. I think this is an absolutely fantastic game. Cannot wait to see Beck Goddard back in the coach's box. Coaching Hawthorne is fantastic to see her there. I'm absolutely so excited for that. I got the Bombers here, but I think this is a cracker. I think this is an absolutely fantastic game. I think this comes down late in the game, which is going to be fantastic in front of a bumper crowd at Marvel Stadium. We jump back to Icon Park for the second game there as the Western Bulldogs host the GWS Giants at Icon Park. I'm gonna tip the doggies in this one, but this is intriguing because this is two teams that I think have a really good shot of improving this year with this upcoming season. So, what do you like in this one?
I think this is the most 50-50 of all the clashes this weekend. There's a couple on the fixture, but I think this is the most 50-50 of them all. I think, from memory, I took the Bulldogs. But at the same time, oh, this is so hard to tip. I think I'm getting the Bulldogs just because it's in Melbourne, even though it's not Whitney Oval.
But it's
But yeah,
Melbourne.
I
It's not
really would
Sydney.
not be surprised if GWS get over the top.
This is one of the reason that I tipped the Western Bulldogs was because I think the inexperience at Ruck I think will help out the Duggies, and with their experienced midfield and it's a lot of talent there. I just think the Duggies got a little too much. I don't know after Cora Staunton. I don't really know who's your dangerous forwards for GWS, where the Duggies I think they've got like I said, Daisy Bateman, Nell Morris Dalton and Ellie Blackburn can go forward and kick goals. You have so many different players that I think can make an impact on this team. So I'm going to tip the doggies in this one, but it's another one. I think this is an absolute fantastic game. The other cracking match in this one up at the GABA, Brisbane Lions, Fremantle Dockers. I have the Lions in this one. This is absolutely kind of a horrible matchup for Fremantle because, yeah, here's your round 7 warm up. You get to go play a very angry Lions team at the GABA who play really really well on that big field. I like the Lions in this one.
Yeah, I think Brisbane should be too strong. They are such a dominant side in Brisbane, and they and Freo don't have either of the Antonios or Houghton. They're not great travellers either. So yeah, I think as much as Port will be joyful that they got West Coast round one, Freo will be the complete opposite that they got Brisbane. So yeah,
Mhm.
I think Brisbane should be too strong.
All right, and the last of the 9 games. I love saying that. Last of 9 games. GMHBA Stadium, Geelong, Richmond. Who do you like in this one?
This is another one of those really 50-50 games. I think Richmond and Geelong are at such similar levels that it really could go either way. But the other thing you've got to remember is GMHBA isn't the fortress for the Cats in the AFLW that it is in the boys. So
Mhm.
I think I think Richmond could get over the top here. So I'm going to tip Richmond.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. I like Mon Conti. I think Richmond is primed here for a good one. And there's with Geelong, it's still a youngish team. Yes, you've got Georgie Pasparka. She's absolutely super talented, but they're still relatively young. There's still some growing pains that I think Geelong still has to go through just the tiniest bit. So I like the experience of Mon Conti, Ellie McKenzie, and Richmond's midfield. I think I think Brennan has an incredible game. I think she kicks 2 or 3 goals, and I think she helps get the Tigers over the line down at GMHBA. So, and that'll do it. 9 games tipped, 9 games down. Fantastic to say it. All 18 teams. Game 1 starts so soon. I'm so excited. I can tell you're super excited, but I know you're more raring to go for Friday with Adelaide and Melbourne. I can tell just on your face how excited you are on that. So, Ali, thank you so much for joining me for this preview show. It is absolutely fantastic. Thank you for all the great work that you are doing with Rookie Me Central and for all of the great links that you keep sending me when it comes to the Sydney Swans or anything like that. I truly appreciate that. The link this morning letting me know, unfortunately, that Montana Baroldson is out for the season and that they have signed a top up player just before the season has started, though. sad. Now I have another player to try to figure out what she's all about, unfortunately. So, but I'm super excited. Cannot wait. So I'm gonna do this really quickly. One last, and my host does this for the rain shows. I'm gonna say one word to describe it. One word to describe AFLW this season. What's the one word that you think of when you think of AFLW season 7?
Exciting. I think that's the first word that comes to mind.
I'm 100% with you. I think for me it's exhilarating because I think this season is going to be fantastic. All 18 teams are going to be playing some absolute superstars going to be able to show it. And the best part is we get to see these girls play in much more footy weather, shall we say. We had that discussion previous, Mike, that it is still it's much more of the footy weather that I think many people of us are used to. So I cannot wait to see how this goes. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Donnie's Disposals, an AFLW review. Keep an eye out. Next week we will review round 1. Cannot wait for it. Stay tuned, and we will see you again next week.